Session 20, Creative Problem-Solving Techniques.
Remember when we talked about that survey that was done where they checked the IQ of 1,000 people at random, and they found the difference in IQ between the least intelligent and the most intelligent was only 2.5 times? And we talked about, with regard to income, how people earning $250,000 a year are not 10 times smarter than people earning $25,000 a year. Well, this subject has fascinated me for years, and I've put together courses which I've taught to major Fortune 500 executives and administrators, and I've come up with some really interesting ideas with regard to intelligence and IQ, and I'd like to just sort of impress upon you one thought, which is this, is that intelligence is a way of acting. Intelligence is not a matter of IQ. It's not a matter of education. It's not a matter of background, contacts, grades, or anything else. There are many extremely intelligent people who can't make a living. There are many people with extended university degrees who are unemployed. But there are also people who didn't finish high school who are running major corporations, because intelligence is a way of acting. What I found was that if you study the way intelligent people, by which I mean people who can get the results they want, act, and you act or you use your mind the way they use their mind, you will actually start to function with the same level of intelligence that they function at, irrespective of your IQ or anything else. So let's start off with this basic sentence. Intelligence is a way of acting. In other words, if you act intelligently, then you are intelligent. If you do not act intelligently, then you are not intelligent, irrespective of how smart you are or how well educated you are. With regard to this, one of the studies that I conducted a couple of years ago was looking at some research on geniuses. What are the characteristics of geniuses? People who perform by the judgment of their peers at exceptional levels of intelligence. People who are over 140 IQ and going up right to 150, 160, 170, 180, and so on. And I found that there are 4 keys to genius. And all 4 of these keys are learnable behaviors. If you learn the 4 keys, you can function at a level of intelligence that is double your level today. So what are the 4 keys? Number 1 key to genius is clarity. Clarity is absolutely essential. As a matter of fact, I find over and over again the reason people fail in life is because they don't know what they want. They're unclear about where they're going. Their goals are vague. Their values are vague. Their alternatives and their options are kind of fuzzy, whereas all successful people have tremendous clarity. Imagine that you have a camera, and every single time you bring your camera into focus so that the subject is perfectly clear, you're on the beam. That means every single time somebody asks you or you think about your goals should be particularly clear. That's what we've talked about. Write them down, clearly describe them, make them time-bounded, make them measurable, make them specific. Use vivid language to accomplish them. Because the more clear your goals are, the sharper your mind is in accomplishing or achieving those goals. Another thing that you have to be clear about is, what are your problems? Remember I said identifying the obstacles that stand between you and your goals, and finding out what are the big obstacles, what are the small obstacles, and being crystal clear. In medicine, what do you do in medicine? In medicine, you just simply go through a process of diagnosis until you find specifically the problem that's causing the ailment. And the more clear you are about the problem, the easier the solution is. The people who are unhappy and unsuccessful today are not people who are not intelligent or not capable, but they're very fuzzy about their goals, and they're equally fuzzy about their problems. And finally, more important than anything else, is your outcomes. This requires more thought than either of the other 2. What is the outcome you desire? Where do you want to be at the end of this process? In other words, what will it look like? What will it feel like? Not the process of getting there, but what is the outcome that you're after? And the focus on outcomes is often a superior focus than that of focusing on goals. Because believe it or not, sometimes your goals may be wrong. Sometimes the problems may not be the right problems, but if you know what the outcome is, if you know what you want it to look like, if you know that you want a 3,500 square foot home that's modern, has all the amenities, and has a study for yourself and a family room for the children and a double garage and so on, if that's the outcome you desire, then the neighborhood that you live in, the terms upon which you get the house, rental, lease, purchase, and so on, those can take care of themselves as long as you're clear about the outcome. So the second key to functioning as a genius is concentration. Concentration. All geniuses, all highly intelligent people, are people who have the ability to concentrate 100% on one thing at a time and concentrate on the most important thing. All non-geniuses, all people of limited intelligence, are people who try to do a whole lot of different things. They're all focused on a whole lot of different things, and because they can't bring their intelligence to bear like a fist on a single problem, they never seem to get anything really resolved. So the ability to concentrate, and we talked about that in time management, making a list of all your goals or all the problems standing in your way, picking the one or two that are the most important, picking number one, and then going to work on number one and staying with it single-mindedly till it's finished. Absolute key to genius, because the more you concentrate, like a laser beam, the more you concentrate, the more of your intelligence is directed, like that beam, that particle beam, more of your intelligence is directed on blasting the problem out of the way or moving you towards your goal. Now, the third quality of genius, which you can develop, is the ability to keep an open mind. You see, we find that people who are very intelligent tend to be open-minded in that they are willing to look at a variety of different approaches. They're willing to stand back from the situation. They're willing to ask a lot of questions. They're willing to ask questions like why, and questions like why not, and questions like what are our assumptions? We're having this problem. What are our assumptions? Could it be that our assumptions are wrong? What if our assumptions were wrong? You know that errant assumptions lie at the root of most failures. Assumptions. What are your assumptions? We find when I go in and do research or consulting for large companies or even small companies, you find that wherever they're having a problem in the market, there's an assumption is wrong. Assumption is wrong with regard to the product, with regard to the service, with regard to the competition, with regard to the customer, and so on. So what are your assumptions? Keep an open mind and look at a whole variety of different ways of approaching whatever problem it is. Another good question to ask is, what else might be the problem? We think this is the problem. What if something else is the problem completely different from what we're looking at? So keep an open mind, be flexible, be fluid, be willing to look at a variety of different approaches. And then the fourth characteristic of all geniuses, surprisingly enough, is that they have a systematic method. They have systematic methodology, if you like, or systematic methods of problem solving. They just don't run off half-cocked. Now, finally, once a genius has gone through a series of systematic methods, very often, as a result of this process of concentration, they just drop the subject out of their mind, and at a certain point, the superconscious will give them the answer that they're looking for. But prior to that, they go through systematic methods, if you like, of organized thinking. Now, most people don't do this. What they do is they throw themselves at a problem the same way a dog throws itself at a car going past, and they go ruff, 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 and they chase after the dog, or they throw themselves after a blanket like a puppy does, and they tear the blanket round and round, and they throw it away. Intelligent people approach every problem logically, systematically, organized fashion. So let's talk about 3 methods of creative thinking that you can use to, like a particle beam smasher, that you can use to smash through about 90-95% of any problem that you'll ever face, any obstacle, anything that stands in your way. And the first is what I call mindstorming. Now, mindstorming is a very simple technique. It was developed many, many years ago. It can be done by yourself or it can be done with other people. More people have become wealthy and successful using this technique than any other technique I've ever seen. I've used this myself for years, and it is absolutely devastating in how rapidly you can come up with great solutions to even the most complex problems. Mindstorming is often called the 20-idea method. The only thing that's necessary to use this 20-idea method is a piece of paper, a pen, and discipline. Why is it that people don't use this method more often? A, they don't know it. B, they're not disciplined enough to use it. But if you will use this on a systematic basis, you will be astonished at the results from the very first time. Well, the 20-idea method simply says this. Take a sheet of paper. Best time to do this is first thing in the morning. And write your major goal or objective at the top of the page in the form of a question. Let us say that you want to increase your income from $30,000 to $45,000 over the next 12 months. So what you do is you might write at the top of the page, what can I do to earn $45,000 over the next 12 months? That would be the question. Or let us say it's a time management question. What can I do to get 2 more hours of productive time every day? Or let's say it's a health question. What can I do to lose 5 pounds a month until I get down to my ideal weight? You put that at the top of the page in the form of a question, and then you force yourself to write 20 different answers. You just keep forcing yourself to write 20 different answers. Now, the first 3 to 5 answers that you'll come up with are pretty easy. The next 3 to 5 are more difficult. The last 10 will be like squeezing blood from a stone, because your mind, if you haven't been using it on a regular basis, will be very slow to respond to this demand. Just like a muscle, if you went into a weight room and began to pump iron, your muscles would respond very, very slowly. But after a week, a month, 2 or 3 months, you could go in and you could work out all afternoon. So put it at the top of the page and generate 20 answers. And then at the end of this, pick one answer and implement it immediately. It's as simple as that. If you'll do this, this technique is so astonishingly powerful. It's amazing. You will come up with ideas out of your mind that will absolutely astonish you. Things will come out on the paper underneath your pen that you never believed were in your brain. I have given this exercise to many groups of executives, and I have found they've come up to me and said, you know, sometimes it's the 20th answer that's worth all the other 19 put together. People have come up to me and said that 20th answer, by forcing yourself to write 20 answers, that 20th answer sometimes is the answer they've been looking for 6 months. So using this exercise, then take one and apply it immediately. Why? It's because that locks into the subconscious and the superconscious that you are serious about this process. Well, if you were to do this 5 days a week, every morning before you start off, and you were to generate 20 ideas every single morning before you started off, and you were to do this times 50 weeks a year, taking 2 weeks off for holidays and taking weekends off where you don't have to think at all, you would end up with about 5,000 ideas per year. If you were to take one idea per year, or one idea per day, times 5 days per week, times 50 weeks per year, it would equal 250 ideas per annum that you would be applying in your life in a world where the average person doesn't use one. Do you think if you used this method on a systematic basis, it would change your results? Do you think if you used this method of creative thinking on a regular basis, you would start to see some progress or some changes? The interesting thing is that if you use this method every day, now I must tell you quite honestly, personally, I cannot use this method for more than 3 days in a row. And the reason is that by the third day, I am coming up with so many ideas that I do not have enough time in the day to implement all the ideas. And they are good ideas, they are sound ideas, they are practical ideas. In many cases, they are superconscious solutions that pour out onto the page. They are insights that are worth sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands, and I've had ideas that have been worth tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars. I do consulting for corporations. Occasionally I'll come up with an idea when I'm doing a consulting assignment for corporations with this exercise that will be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to them, because it will be a unique distillation of a series of factors that suddenly crystallize like a flashbulb catches the photograph with all the details. It'll suddenly crystallize in a superconscious way, and bang, there will be the idea. So I strongly urge you to use this method starting today. Take any goal, any problem, any difficulty, write it as the form of a question and try it once, and you will be astonished at how effectively it works.